I'm an old school climber. If you come to this channel hoping to learn climbing techniques, I think you're going to be disappointed, because I'm still stuck back in the early days of my climbing life in terms of the way I do things. And I'm not ashamed of it. I'm efficient, I do a good job. But if you're looking for information on how to use the zigzag or the akimbo or the chicane or all the new toys, I'm not very good at it, and I admit it. Matter of fact, I learned climbing from my early days as a rock climber, and even then I was an old school kind of guy. This is the kind of stuff that I learned how to climb on. Pitons, the kind of stuff that, all this stuff should be in a museum. This stuff is so old. I still have a few. I used to do some pretty significant climbs, and a team of 2 guys, we often would carry 80 pounds of steel up the mountain with us. That's no longer being done. Pitons are frowned upon because there's a lot better ways. And it's kind of the same with tree work. You know, I'm still a ropes and knots kind of guy, and I'm good at it. And I don't want to change at this point in my life. However, if you come to this channel to learn about trees and tree care and different problems with trees, that's where I excel. So come on, let's go on a little adventure today. I'm going to go out and do a little bit of climbing with my son. And we're going to talk about trees as we go. Speaking of old school, I wanted to show you my motorcycle. It's kind of interesting because a friend of mine showed up with a modern motorcycle. My motorcycle is like me, old school. So look at the contrast between the 2 bikes.
So yeah, tell my dad about Horseshoe Hell.
Oh, have you heard of it before?
No, never heard of it. He was telling me a little bit about it.
So it's like it's in Arkansas, in the Ozarks there, and it's been going. I think this is the 14th year, but it is a 24-hour climbing competition there at this ranch. It's called Horseshoe Canyon Ranch, and they just went in there and bolted just a shit ton of routes.
How many people do that every year?
It's capped at 250 teams.
Teams?
Teams, yeah, 2.
Holy crap.
So it's you and a partner, and you just climb as many pitches as you can in 24 hours. You lead them all, and you can only do each route twice. So you can get, like, I can get 2 and he can get 2. We can get 4 pitches total on like a single route. But they're all like short, like, I don't know, 40 feet, some are like 25-foot problems, or, routes that are like,
though, right?
some of them, I mean, you can get like proper routes, full 70-meter routes on it, but like the strategy is to do as many of the shorter routes as you can,
Seeing us off. Here we go. Yeah. Yeah, turn it on. And off you go. I gotta get the left side here.
Hey,
See you later. Good to meet you.
good luck. I'll come up in a couple hours.
Awesome.
So the adventure begins. Cody rode his bike, Kalen rode his electric skateboard, and I decided to walk. It's only about a half an hour walk to the location where they're going, but I thought I'd show you some of the trees. One of the first things that I really think is interesting is that this is an old home site, and there are a few really old fruit trees on this property. These happen to be apples. But there's about, I think there's about 6 old apple trees here, and there's an old walnut, an English walnut there. There's a couple of pear trees here as well, over in the distance there. I think this was back in the 30s or the 40s, so these trees are likely 80, maybe even 90 years old. They're fairly significant, but they're not big. And they don't have any fruit on them right now, which is kind of interesting. I think that they need to be pruned badly, but because they're on a state park land, they're not going to do anything with these trees. If there was any fruit, I think the animals probably would have gotten through them. Apple trees and pear trees still have fruit on them in the urban environment, but in a wild, non-maintained tree like this, I wouldn't expect it to have any fruit. So it's an interesting hike, and one of the topics I really wanted to talk about today are the Madrone trees. Along the Pacific coast, we have this beautiful tree called Madrone, and what's important to know is this tree needs a lot of mulch. Many times I see the trees in developed properties, and they'll blow away all the mulch and they'll rake everything up, and they wonder why their trees aren't doing good. And you can see how deep I was digging there. So 4 to 6, even 8 inches of a natural mulch. And oftentimes these trees do best in a grouping. When there's just a single madrone, oftentimes it doesn't do as well as in a grouping. Very, very attractive trees. I love them. They're difficult to climb because the bark is so slippery, and you certainly don't want to use spurs on them unless you're removing them. But they've got what's known as an exfoliating bark. And the inner bark, the smooth bark, changes colors every season. It's a little bit different. It can go from a real brown color to a brilliant lime green to an almost orange color. You can see this one still has a little bit of the green shading in it. But as the exfoliating skin, the bark, peels off on these smooth sections, oftentimes you have kind of a puzzle looking effect until it oxidizes and turns brown again. Here's an interesting tree I spotted on this hike. This is a double Douglas Fir, and both of these trees are growing so close together, I can only wonder how weak this is and how long it's been growing that way. As I was going along, I spotted another madrone tree, and it had a tent caterpillar in one small area. Interesting to look around when I was hiking up here. There's lots of rock formations, and my son and his friend Cody wanted to do a day of burnout, hardcore, up and down, up and down. They just wanted to get a good workout, so I thought I'd come along and see what they were doing. I thought I'd do some climbing with them, but they were kind of occupying the ropes consistently. They were on a mission. They wanted to do 100 repetitions of different routes. So they picked one route, which is not a real hard route, but it's about 80 to 100 feet high. And they did it over and over and over with a single rope and a device known as a gree-gree for a self-belay. So this is a place in Castle Rock State Park. This particular rock is called Goat Rock. It's got some beautiful formations on it, and you can't see it from here, but around over to the right there's a fairly large opening. It's a cave. It's big enough to hold about 10 people or so, and it has a window that comes through on this side and a bigger opening. It's kind of hard to get to unless you're climbing. Was that 31?
That was 32.
32.
2 minutes, 30 seconds.
Well, you're timing your climbs, huh?
Yeah.
What's your best time?
I think that's probably amongst it, yeah.
Okay. After doing it 32 times in a row. And your goal is 50 times on this one?
I think so, yeah.
And then where are you going to finish the day off at? Indian?
Yep. There's a slab over
Here
there.
comes my son, Kalen.
Good job, man.
They planned on doing 50 repetitions of this climb and then move over to another climb.
Or even the Red River Gorge.
Been to the Red, yeah. It's a great place.
Kentucky.
Yeah.
So they climb up and they rappel down. They climb up and they rappel down. There was another group of climbers at the base of this teaching a class. So this rock was rather busy on this Sunday. And here's the climb. As you can see, it's not a difficult climb, but I think they were going for the workout aspect of it. I hope you enjoy my video. I didn't mean to change up here and go into rock climbing, but it is a good way to stay in shape for tree work. So if you're a tree worker or a tree climber and you've not explored rock climbing, I think you might enjoy it. It's a great way to build up muscles that you may not realize that you have need of strengthening or conditioning. So I've always enjoyed rock climbing. I still do a bit of rock climbing myself. But Kalen and his buddy Cody here, they do a fair amount of rock climbing together as a team. So they're getting their last little day of working out. Thanks a lot, and please subscribe to my channel. You know, except to get down, I don't even know why you guys are bothering with those ropes. Well, Kalen's pulling his up. Cody, man, you take a fall there, you're going to hit the ground.
Nah.